Hello, this is an informational video on setting up a 2012 Mini Cooper for flat towing behind an RV. This video consists of three main parts: information on setting up the Mini Cooper for flat tow, configuring your RV for towing, and a demonstration at the end of the system in action. So you can fast forward through any of these parts that you really don't care about. The reason I made this video is because when I bought the M&G Engineering brake system, there's only one video out there, and it's for the original system, not for the 2.0. So I'm going to be talking a little more in detail about the 2.0 system. I'll be talking about that system, the M&G Engineering 2.0 brake system, and the Blue Ox base plate that's attached to the front of the Mini for towing, and also the Towmate lighting system for brake lights and turn signals. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the Blue Ox base plate. It's 2012 Mini Cooper S. Not a lot of room to work on this thing. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Blue Ox base plate that mounts on it. It mounts right up here alongside and underneath of the bumper. There are 5 bolts that hold it. You see 2 on the outside here. There are 3 more up under here, if you can see them. The one bolt that mounts straight in this way is supposed to fit into a manufacturer's hole that's already in the bumper, but it doesn't, so you have to drill it out. So it's a bit of a challenge. The hardest part of this was making sure that you have super sharp drill bits, because you're going through, in some cases, 1/4 inch steel to mount the bolts. The other important factor in this, besides this, they give you the bolts, is that the bolts that you install, if you have to install your own bolt, especially the one that doesn't line up down here, make sure you have grade 3 or higher. See those 3 little lines on it? So you have high quality bolts that aren't going to snap. Once the system's installed, you've got hooks that go in here that snap in place. Like that. This will attach to your tow bar. You got your safety chain brackets, and then in the middle you got 2 little bars that come down here and comes out at a 90-degree angle. You can mount your accessories. In this case, it's the kill switch for the braking system, air for the braking system, and the wiring that I need to run the braking system. So that's it. The base plate itself is not that hard to install. You have to pull apart the entire plastic front end of the Mini to get to everything, but the installation is really not that difficult. Okay, let's talk about the M&G Engineering 2.0 brake system that's installed on this Mini Cooper. First of all, I'm going to talk real quick about the original M&G system. The original M&G system had a pneumatic cylinder that was fitted in between the master cylinder and the brake booster. Obviously, there's no room on a Mini Cooper to fit that in. There was an air line that went to that cylinder in between the master cylinder and the booster that went out by a quick disconnect to the RV's air brakes. So if the air brakes were applied in the RV, it would also apply the brakes on the towed vehicle. Well, the need for the MG2O system came up when it was discovered that a lot of cars, especially this Mini, has no room to put a cylinder in there. So what they did to work around that is they came up with 3 separate components. The first component is an air piston that's mounted down here with a cable on it that runs to the brake pedal, back of the brake pedal. So when air is applied in here, it's applied to this piston and pulls the cable back, and it applies the brakes on the towed vehicle. And this is the cable coming in through the floorboard to the back of the pedal. Okay, now that system alone, because the towed vehicle is not running, it's still pulling on a dead brake pedal. Dead meaning there's no power boost. So to provide or simulate a power boost, power brakes, as if the car was running, they had to add other components to it. So they added a vacuum pump, which simulates engine vacuum, as if the system was running, the car was running by itself and the brakes were working normally. They added the vacuum pump to provide vacuum to the booster, and they added a switch that tells the vacuum pump when to come on. So when the piston down here pulls on the cable and applies the brake pedal, there's a push rod that goes through the booster into the master cylinder. That pushes on the diaphragm, which pushes essentially a wisp of air, not much, up to this switch, which turns on the vacuum pump. The vacuum pump is connected to the vacuum line on the booster, and the vacuum pump will suck in the diaphragm just as if the car was running and it had regular engine vacuum to it. So essentially it gives you power brakes even though the car is not running. Those three components, the vacuum pump, the vacuum switch, which is again cut into the vacuum line that goes from the engine to the booster, and the brake pedal piston are the three major components of the M&G Engineering 2.0 system, and they work as designed. So it's essentially a 1-to-1 ratio. When you lightly apply the brakes on the RV, you're lightly applying the power brakes on the towed vehicle. If you just come to complete stop, it applies the same amount of pressure. If you do a panic stop, then it's going to nail the brakes on the towed vehicle just like you're nailing them on the RV. It's the same thing. It's like you're not even towing the vehicle, essentially. It makes the towed vehicle part of the RV. Now there's two additional options that you can get with this system. You can get a breakaway system, which consists of this tank, air tank, with a switch assembly and a kill switch. I'll show you in the demo how the kill switch works, but essentially it's a cable attached to this, to the back of the RV. If you should lose, for some reason, the tow hook, the tow bar comes loose, the safety chain should break and everything, all hell breaks loose, and the car is now freewheeling, that cable will pull out this switch down here, turn on the switch, which will then push air from this tank into the piston and apply the brakes full stop and hold the brakes right there. So the car will stop dead right in the middle of the street and not go anywhere. It's not going to roll away, not going to run into other cars in traffic. They may run into your towed vehicle, but it'll stop the vehicle dead in its tracks. The other option that's offered for the system is a alert valve, which is right here. Also runs off the top of the tank for the breakaway. And this line, this wire runs into the back of the RV, up to the dashboard. There's a little red LED light that you install on the dashboard. So when you apply the brakes in the RV, the red light comes on telling you that the brakes are also being applied at the same time on the towed vehicle. Now if that light doesn't come on, then it's a good chance that your towed vehicle is no longer following you. So it's an alert system to let you know that everything is working properly. It's a pretty ingenious system. Like I said, if you apply the brakes a little bit, puts a little bit of pressure. If you apply them hard, it puts a lot of pressure. It's just as if this vehicle has become one with the RV when it comes to braking. And that's the M&G 2.0 braking system. Now there's a lot, before I end this part, there is quite a bit of fabrication you have to do. The hardest part, even though the system says it's compatible, and that's just what they mean, it's compatible with a Mini Cooper, it is not designed for a Mini Cooper. So the biggest issue you're going to have is finding a place to locate all the components. Now, I had to locate this one down here on the bottom part of this bracket, which goes behind the plastic facade. I had to find room up here for the vacuum pump. In the windshield wiper area is where I located the breakaway. All the fuses and links are put back here by the battery. When I tied in back here to a 30 amp piggyback fuse in the fuse box. Then I had to fabricate this plate down here to hold the quick disconnect for the air, the kill switch, and a 4-pin connector that runs the power, the ground, the alert light from the towed vehicle into the RV. So you have to do some fabrications with it, some modifications, and be real creative as far as fitting all these components in. But once they're fit in, once you figure out where to put the stuff, it was essentially pretty easy to put all the pieces together and to get it wired and hosed up correctly. Okay, that's the M&G 2.0 system. Okay, let's talk about setting up the RV for towing. First, I'm going to talk about the Blue Ox tow bar. This is it right here. I had to put a 4-inch drop receiver because the RV is 18 inches above the ground and the Mini is only 12 inches. So now I'm down to just a 2-inch. So once the RV is loaded though, I should probably cut it down to even less than 2 inches, keeping the tow bar pretty much parallel to the ground. We'll see that in the demo. I also put locks in here. As you can see, got them on Amazon. And I put anti-rattle plates, U-bolts. I had to turn them upside down in case I drag because it's hanging down pretty low right now. But we'll get to see the tow bar in action after. All right, let's talk about the M&G 2.0 Power Pack. The Power Pack is what you need if you have hydraulic brakes on your RV. Most Class A's have air brakes. Most Class C's don't. They have hydraulic. The brake system on the towed vehicle, however, operates off of air. So we need to get air from the RV to the towed system. That's where this power pack comes in. You mount it on the frame. It's essentially an air compressor with a tank. And the heart of this system is this valve right here. M&G calls it a proportioning valve. It's actually a valve that has hydraulic fluid coming in one side off the brake pedal, and out the other side is the air line that goes out the back to the towed vehicle. So it's more like a combination hydraulic / air valve, but we'll go with the proportioning valve that M&G calls it. You can see there's wiring has to go up. This thing has a pretty hefty draw. It's a 30 amp draw on the battery. I'll show you in a second. This needs to be wired directly to the battery. Here's the brake line. It goes out, follows the frame up to the just in front of the axle where there's a T. Here's the air line coming back out. Yeah, excuse all the movement. Here's the air line. That pink cord is for the breakaway. I'll show you that in the demonstrations. And also back here is the electrical cord that provides power from the RV into the towed vehicle. Also has the one wire that goes to the LED on the dashboard. See if we can see the T connection for the brake line. Okay, I had to cut in to the brake line with a T, which is right here. You can see that. Fortunately, they already had a coupling there because they had to extend the brake line. That's the T. This is the brake line that goes out into the proportioning valve on the back of the power pack. Okay, we'll move up to the front of the vehicle. When I wired this, you want to wire it straight to the battery. Don't screw around taking it to the fuse box for the piggyback. This thing draws a lot of amps. So I tied in the positive. First of all, it goes to a relay, which is right here. You need to have a 30 to 40 watt, 30 to 40 amp relay on here with a switch. So all the power comes into the relay. The relay is powered here off the battery positive, and the negative, they're tied in directly. Up on the dash, I installed a switch. You should be able to hear the compressor come on. I drained the tank, that's why the compressor's on right now. So when you're towing a vehicle, the switch goes on. The light above it, this red light, will come on once the brakes are applied on the towed vehicle. During the demonstration, I'll show you that. And that's it. That's the power pack that converts a hydraulic brake vehicle into the air brakes necessary to run the towed vehicle. Okay, here, now we're ready for the demo. The demo is going to be hooking up the 2012 Mini Cooper to the 2019 Winnebago. I'm going to show you the Blue Ox tow bar setup, the M&G 2.0 braking system setup, and the Towmate light system setup. We're going to go through the whole process just as if we're getting ready to go on the road with the checklist and everything else. I used 8 steps, and let's go over here and get started on the tow bar. So here's the Blue Ox tow bar, configured for travel. It has all the locks on it so nobody can steal it. Stand it up. Drop it down. Notice it says up. It's kind of hard to screw this up. You want to spread the legs out a little bit. Take your locking pins, pull out the cap. I put plastic ties in all the caps so they don't get lost. Insert your pin in, turn it, it locks. Those are your toe pins, they're already set up. These will expand out up to 6 inches. So we're going to pull the pins off on the bottom, the locking pins. Bring the first one up. These can be bent to fit in. Locking pins back on. Locking pin on this one. Okay, step 1 is done. Step 2, the safety chains. You crisscross the safety chains in the event that the tow bar should come loose. The cross safety chains will act like a cradle so the tow bar doesn't drop onto the ground. Alright, that's step 2. Step 3, we got our air brakes. Make the connection for our air brakes. Step 4, our wiring. It runs all the power from the RV to the brakes and also the LED on the dash. Move this up so it's not dragging. Step 5, you got a breakaway. It goes on the switch. The switch should be able to swivel left or right a little bit, not a lot. Make sure there's nothing obstructing it. Like I just did, it should go on top. Should be unobstructed. Let's put it across the top of the air hose. And then step 6, we have our tow mate. This is a wireless lighting system for your brakes, turn signals. This goes in the 7-pin connector. Plugs in like that. And we're going to turn on a couple switches. I put a switch in the Mini that powers all the M&G 2.0 braking system, because one of the recommendations was when you're not towing, you're just driving a car normally, you want to pull the fuse out for the breakaway, just in case, just for safety. I don't like pulling fuses, so I put a switch in that controls everything up there. I can cut it off or cut it on. So I turn the switch on, that turns on the vacuum pump and everything else. I have another switch you've already seen. In the RV, I also turn on this switch. That's the compressor, air compressor that's running, providing air for the brakes. That'll turn off in a second. That's the configuration. It doesn't take very long to set it up. Even faster to take it apart. As soon as the compressor is done running, we're going to do the brake test. We're going to test the lights, and then we're good to go to hit the road. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you was the red light on the dashboard when you apply the brakes. So the red light up here, when you hit the brakes in the RV, that red light will tell you that the brakes are being applied on the Mini. Off, on, off. Brakes, off, brakes, off, brakes. Okay, you can see the brake pedal move in and out. Okay, off. One more time, brakes. The tow mate lights. Left turn. Right turn. Right turn. Off. Come on back. Okay, I'm going to show you how the breakaway works. I'm going to pull the pin. Well, first I'll pull the pin and show you what that how it works. If everything else here comes loose and you have a runaway vehicle, that will pull out this piece of plastic, which allows two terminals to touch and make contact and turn a switch on. I'll show you on the brake pedal. what happens when I pull this switch in the front. Put the switch back in. Back in. The brakes are applied, hard stop, and the vehicle comes to a stop in the middle of the street, so it can't roll away on you. Last thing I want to show you is the tow-mate lights. I didn't want to go ahead and do all the wiring after putting in the base plate and everything else, so I have a wireless lighting system. I showed you this before. 7-pin trailer. The tow light is magnetic. I moved the magnets from the bottom because I don't like the way it's sat up here. It was hard to see over the spoiler. I moved them to the top, screw the plate onto the bottom of the spoiler, mount them that way. They plug into a cigarette lighter right here in the back of the car. They're LED lights. They don't draw much amperage, so it's not a big strain on the battery. But that's it. So the time it took to set it up, it take you less time to actually set it up without me talking about it. Okay, so again, that is the Blue Ox tow system and base plate mounted on 2012 Mini, the M&G 2.0 braking system mounted inside the Mini, and the tow-mate lighting system for flat towing a Mini behind the Winnebago. Thank you.